Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, there were two children named Hansel and Gretel. They lived in a small cottage at the edge of the forest with their father and stepmother. Hansel and Gretel's father was a woodcutter. He was very poor, and the family didn't have much food to eat. The day came when there was hardly any food left at all. "What are we to do?" cried the father. The stepmother, who didn't like Hansel and Gretel, said, "We must take the children into the thickest part of the forest and leave them there. There are just too many mouths to feed." "We can't do that," protested the father, for he loved his children dearly. "We must, or we'll all die of hunger," screeched his wife. "The children are going, and that is that." From their bedroom, Hansel and Gretel overheard the conversation. Gretel burst into tears. "Don't worry," Hansel said. "I'll look after you." When their parents went to bed, Hansel crept out of the house. All around lay little white pebbles that shone like coins in the silvery moonlight. He filled his pockets with them and then went back to bed. Early the next morning, the stepmother hurried Hansel and Gretel out of bed. "Come on, children, we're going into the forest to chop wood," she told them. With a heavy heart, the woodcutter led his children into the forest. As they walked along, Hansel dropped the pebbles from his pockets onto the path. When they reached the middle of the forest, the woodcutter said, "Wait here. We'll be back as soon as we've finished chopping wood." Hansel and Gretel waited all day, but their father and stepmother didn't come back. Soon it was dark among the thick trees. Gretel was frightened. "We'll find our way home," Hansel comforted his sister. When the moon rose high in the sky, the white pebbles that Hansel had left on the path lit up. He grabbed his sister's hand. "Come on, Gretel. The pebbles will show us the way home." When Hansel and Gretel returned, the woodcutter was relieved to see his children again, but their stepmother was furious. Before long, the woodcutter and his family had very little food again. "Tomorrow we will take the children deeper into the forest. They must not find their way home," the stepmother cried. This time, as they were led deep into the forest, Hansel left a trail of breadcrumbs. When their parents didn't return from chopping wood, Hansel said, "We'll follow the breadcrumbs I dropped on the path. They will lead us home." But when the moon came up, Hansel and Gretel couldn't see any crumbs. "The birds must have eaten them all," whispered Hansel. Frightened and hungry, Hansel and Gretel curled up under a tree and went to sleep, waiting anxiously for daylight. The next morning, they wandered through the forest. After a while, they came to a clearing and a little cottage. "Hansel, look!" cried Gretel. "That cottage is made out of candy and gingerbread." The children were so hungry, they grabbed some candy from the walls of the house. Just then, the door opened and an old woman hobbled out. "Come in, children," she said, smiling. "I've got plenty more food here." Their stomachs growling, Hansel and Gretel followed the old woman into the cottage. After a delicious meal, she showed them to two little beds and they lay down to sleep. The children didn't know that the old woman was actually a wicked old witch who liked to eat children. When Hansel and Gretel woke up from their nap, the witch grabbed Hansel and locked him in a cage. She set Gretel to work cleaning and cooking huge meals to fatten up Hansel. Weeks passed. Every morning, the witch went up to the cage. "Hold out your finger, boy. I want to feel if you're fat enough to eat." Hansel, being a smart boy, would hold out an old chicken bone instead. The witch's eyesight was so bad that she thought the bone was Hansel's finger. She wondered why the boy wasn't getting any fatter. One day, the witch grew impatient. "I can't wait any longer," she screeched. "I'm going to cook Hansel now." Gretel was terrified. "We'll bake some bread to eat with your brother," said the witch. "Go and check if the oven is hot enough." Grabbing Gretel's arm, the wicked witch pushed her roughly toward the open oven door. Grinning horribly, she licked her cracked lips. She was planning on eating Gretel too and couldn't wait for her delicious meal. Gretel guessed the witch's trick. "I'm too big to fit in there," she said. "Oh, you silly girl," cackled the witch. "Even if I can fit in there." And she put her head into the oven to prove she was right. Gretel gave her a giant push, and the witch fell right inside. Gretel quickly slammed the oven door shut. "Hansel, the witch is dead," cried Gretel, as she unlocked her brother's cage. As Hansel and Gretel made their way out of the house, they discovered that it was full of sparkling jewels and gold coins. The children stuffed their pockets with treasure. "Come on, Gretel," laughed Hansel. "Let's go home." Their father was overjoyed to see them. He told them that their stepmother had died while they were gone, and that they had nothing to fear anymore. Hansel and Gretel showed their father the jewels and coins. They would be poor no longer. And from then on, the woodcutter and his children were never hungry again. The end.